Now, last weekend, scenes of illegal parties like this one were splashed across the news. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, said the gatherings showed a blatant disregard for the safety of others and responded with £10,000 fines for organisers and £100 fines for those who attend. She described the actions of those involved as breathtakingly selfish behaviour from a senseless minority to jeopardise the progress we have made together.
For some, reports of these parties have sparked fear and concern, particularly as the World Health Organization has asked young people to curb their party instincts after reporting that increasing cases in 15 to 24-year-olds could be driving second spikes across Europe.
With older people more vulnerable to coronavirus, are some young people being selfish, or, with their futures thrown into disarray by the pandemic, are they being unfairly scapegoated?
Here to discuss the issues raised are presenter and cultural commentator Zeze Mills, Dr. Bharat Pankhania. We're having a few issues with his feed, but we hope he's going to join us. A senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter, music producer and DJ Fat Tony, who's been part of London's events party scene for the past 30 years, and journalist Nina Myskow. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today.
Zeze, we'll start with you. According to the World Health Organization, the proportion of 15 to 24-year-olds infected with disease has increased threefold in the past 5 months. That is a massive increase. It's time that generation took things more seriously, isn't it?
I think it's quite unfair to pinpoint a global pandemic and a potential spike on just the younger generation. And I've been out. The other day I went to Westfield. It's families there. When people go to the beaches, it's families there. Yesterday there was protests in Trafalgar Square where that was a range of age groups. I think to pinpoint it on young people is extremely unfair, especially when at the moment the messaging is also all over the place. At the beginning of the pandemic, we was told that we were probably not going to be that open to catching the COVID, and now we've been told that it's our fault why there could be a spike. I think it's really unfair, and I think that it's unfair to pinpoint it on just a specific demographic when everybody is going out. We've been encouraged to go out. The government has encouraged us to go out to eat. All of these things are factors as to why young people are now deciding to go out.
Dr. Pankhani, we see in the papers today that we have to Pankhani, sorry. We see in the papers today that we're going to be punishing our children if we don't send them to school. Aren't the young just being scapegoated for this hike in infections?
Yes, I agree with our previous caller. We can't scapegoat anyone. If anyone needs to be scapegoated, is the messenger. We've had a lot of mixed messages throughout this pandemic, and we are all susceptible to infection. Any one of us can get infected. At this point in time, the elderly group are shielding and taking extra care, and that's why we're not seeing cases amongst them. And we have been encouraged. We have been encouraging young people and others to go out, eat out, help out, etc. So those mixed messages obviously will result in a rise in number of cases, especially with the schools opening. So I'm very concerned September onwards.
But Dr. Pankhania, shouldn't we be particularly worried about young people, because that's where it's increasing the most?
Yes, we are. I mean, we don't scapegoat them, but we do know, and we need to get our messages quite right, which is, young people, you are now circulating, you are going back to work, you're going back to your offices, you're going to school, etc. You may get infected. Doesn't mean that you will not be affected. We cannot have this, that young people are infected, get better, nothing to worry about. That is just not true, because we are seeing what we call this long COVID syndrome, which is people get infected and some of them, a small percentage, go on to have long-term problems. The other thing about young people also is that they may bring home infection to their parents or grandparents. And again, this is not explicitly addressed, which is, young person, you may be okay, but you may infect others. Therefore, the advice is don't get infected, don't infect others.
Nina, what's your take on this? I mean, young people have had a particularly tough time over the last few months. Reports say 18 to 24-year-olds are the most likely to feel lonely during this time, and the biggest proportional increase in depression was amongst those aged 16 to 39. But don't they just need to get together and experience something bigger than themselves and let off some steam?
Absolutely not. That's incredibly selfish behaviour. I agree that we've had so many mixed messages. The government's mishandled this completely. So young people do think that well, I'm not going to be badly affected, so I can get away with it. But, really, it's if you look at the statistics, Sean said, three times the cases have gone up. In London, for instance, it's under 30s, it's 27 per 100,000, 127 per 100,000. So that's way over the limit. And the thing is, I understand that and it's dreadful that people get lonely and miserable and depressed, but so does everybody else. It's not just the young people. Young people think they're special. Everybody is special, and young people are no more special than anybody else. And I think the problem is that, in a way, the younger generation has been brought up to feel, rightly or wrongly, the young game here at the earth, that they can be anything, they can do anything, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's absolutely wonderful, and it's great for self-esteem. And
Okay.
we all need
Tony, this sounds not so great, so we're going to... Sorry,
Yeah.
Your sound's not brilliant. We're going to move to Tony. I can see you shaking your head and disagreeing.
I was totally disagreeing with what she had to say. I mean, I'm quite glad that the sound was ruined on that. Sorry, but...
How very rude.
I'm sorry, I'm not being rude, but, I think that you saying that... That young people aren't special. Of course they're not special, but what it is it's nothing to do with loneliness. It's about the fact that what they got to look forward to. The whole world stopped dancing.
They've got their whole lives to look forward to. They've got their whole life. It's a hiccup for them.
Tony, let's just... What's driving the criticism of young people then? Is it something else? Is it just they're using this as an excuse to bash young people?
I think that it's not even so much of an excuse, but I think that at the end of the day, it's like, firstly, the spike across Europe, as you're all talking about, and the fact that they closed most of the clubs. Most people have to be 21 plus to get into a nightclub or to even go into a bar. In this country, the first thing we opened was bars and pubs. So you're giving out mixed messages. It's okay to go somewhere where you can be 20 deep at a bar waiting to get a pint of lager, because no one does that seating thing in any pubs I've ever been in London in the last few months. So what you're doing is you're telling people they can't dance. If you tell a child not to eat his greens, he's not going to eat his greens. And at the end of the day, it's about, these illegal raves that are going on. We had it in the 80s, the late 80s, at the end of Thatcherism. We had it when we had the poll tax riots. We had this whole rave culture starting. And we're having it again because what do they have to look forward to? They're about to go into a hard Brexit on January the 1st. I mean,
Tony, we're not going to get into the politics too much.
We're not going to. But I'm just saying, what it is people want the freedom to dance and people want the freedom to go out and enjoy themselves. It can be done in such a safe way. Most bars you go into, no one's wearing face masks. Offices, they're not going to be wearing face masks. They're going to go to the pub after. So what I'm saying to you is there's such mixed messaging going out there. That people aren't.
Is it the illicit nature of the big raves that are drawing people to them, do you think, as a kind of protest?
Yeah, it's 100%. What happened at the beginning of summer when we had that first heat wave and you had 500,000 people go to Bournemouth Beach and there was no spike? But that's what people are reading. And they read this stuff in the media. There is no spike. The BLM marches, there was no spike. And all you read in the papers, there's going to be a spike. There was no spike. Young people are seeing this and thinking, OK, well, where is the spike?
CeCe, your generation are incredibly socially responsible in so many ways. Much more sort of community-minded than some generations, my generation, for example. It's interesting, isn't it, that you're not being community-minded in this area. Do you think your generation should make these sacrifices to protect the older generation?
Again, I think it's unfair to pinpoint it on my generation. Yeah. It's not just young people going to the park. When as it was just mentioned, when there was the heat wave 2 weeks ago, it was families going to the park. There was family. If mass gatherings are so detrimental to us as a people, then they should have shut the parks. They shouldn't be encouraging us to go to eat. They shouldn't have shopping centres open. As I said, I went to Westfield the other day. It took me 20 minutes to find parking. When I got inside, there was no social distancing going on. People weren't wearing masks. To target one demographic and say, oh, you guys are not. What about the VE Day celebrations? There was no reports on that. There were people gathering for those celebrations. What about the protests yesterday? I haven't seen anyone, come out and say, oh, that's disgusting.
Well, let's bring Dr. Pankania in on that. And Tony mentioned it as well. After the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests and the VE Day celebrations, I mean, lots of people were talking about, oh, a second spike. But we didn't have any of that afterwards, did we?
Hold your horses. Let's not talk about second spikes. The wave is a continuation. And the reason why the wave, the number of cases went down is because we went into shutdown restricted movements. Come September, when many more things will be open, I expect, and it's not rocket science, case numbers to go up. So that wave of case numbers going up will inevitably happen. Now, Zeze is absolutely right. The messaging is, on the one hand, directed at young people. On the other hand, it is the whole of community. And the government could have done a lot better just by saying, look, the virus has not gone away.
OK, we're all agreed on that. Now, Nina, is this then, it seems like it just seems to be a false division between young and old. Is this something that's just being fuelled by the media? Are we making unnecessary divisions in an already divided society? It's not helpful, is it, to divide between young and old? Everyone is going out and about, everyone is not wearing masks, and the illegal raves are just a tiny percentage of the things that are happening.
That's absolutely true. But on the other hand, the statistics show that where the increase in cases is in young people, is in under 30s. If you look at the States, the average age of people catching the corona is 30 in Florida. And it's the under 30s here in London where the cases are rising. And so, it's not deliberately targeting, not saying, I'm an old person, I hate young people. It's not that. I think it's, I think Zeze is fine to defend her generation. But we're all in this together, and I don't see why young people should feel entitled, more entitled than other generations, to go out and potentially catch it.
Yeah. OK, well, that's where we're going to have to leave it, I'm afraid. Thank you all very much indeed. It's a very interesting discussion.